Hey everyone, you're here sewing with Cody, and in today's video we are working with foot number 8. So this just follows along in our series of feet videos that get released. And so with foot number 8, this is the zipper foot. So we're going to take a closer look at foot number 8 and 8D and how we can use them and some of the tools and things that we should use along with them. So with any of the videos that you watch and that you like, make sure you give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. And if you're not already, hit the subscribe button. So let's take a look at foot number 8. So here we are with foot number 8D. And so with foot number 8, which is the jeans foot, this foot comes in two different variants. We have the 8D, which is the one you should use when working on a dual feed machine. So like any of the 7 series, the 8 series, and a lot of the new 5 series that have that built-in dual feed, you're going to want to use the number 8D. D standing for dual feed, like we've gone over in other videos. But you also have the regular number 8, and that's the number 8 that doesn't have a letter after it. And so those are going to be used on just regular 5.5mm stitch width machines. So with the number 8 it's a straight stitch foot, but it allows you to move that needle position 1mm. So we are, with this foot on, we can move our needle over, and we can see it moves over just a little bit to the left or a little bit over to the right, but the machine knows where it can stay, and it knows its restrictions. And you're going to ask why and how does it know? So the machine knows because of this code. This code's telling the machine the foot's restriction, so it knows it can only move a little bit of that needle. Now, if you have a machine that can't read this code, so those are going to be your 5.5mm stitch width machines, it has no idea what foot you have on it. And so those machines, you'll be using just a regular number 8 foot. But so if we take a closer look at the jeans foot number 8D, we can see that it's primarily a straight stitch, which is basically, it's a 1mm stitch width foot. But you can also see it's got this groove underneath it. And so what makes this unique for working with jeans is it's designed to sew through heavy layers of fabric and multiple layers of fabric, but also it's designed to use thicker thread. And that's what that's one of the things I'm going to show you today. So it's designed to use like a straight stitch or a triple stitch using much thicker thread, so that thread flows underneath the foot and helps prevent skip stitches or irregular stitch length. That would call it basically if the stitches were getting caught on the foot. But here, because we've got that groove directly underneath the foot, it helps really prevent any of those skip stitches or irregular stitches. So when you are using the number 8 foot to sew through heavy layers of fabric, it is recommended that you use a much bigger needle. So if you are working with denim, which is a jeans foot, so you're designed to be worked with denim, but you're not restricted to just that type of fabric, it is recommended to use a jeans needle that's by size 100 or size 110, so a much thicker needle to help penetrate those multiple layers of fabric. Another thing you can do with this foot is top stitching. So when you're working with top stitching, especially like on denim or jeans, you're going to want to use a large top stitch needle, and that's what we have here. We have a size 100 top stitch. And so like I've mentioned this before in multiple videos, and I have a video that's dealing just with this style needle, not necessarily the size, but the top stitch needle, the eyelet, basically where the hole where the thread's going through, you can see there, that eyelet is significantly longer than any other needle. So what that does is it allows for thicker thread to pass through that hole without fraying or breaking. And that's exactly what we're going to use it for. So we're going to be using, so you can use a coordinate thread, or here I've got a 12 weight. So you can see I've got a 12 weight Aurifil cotton thread. So that's what we're going to use. So a 12 weight thread is essentially the thickest thread you can feed through the eyelet of your machine, or the eyelet of your needle. So here we're using the Schmetz top stitch size 100. I already have it in the machine. And so what we're going to do, I'm going to thread the machine for this thread, and you're not going to do anything different. than how you would normally thread the machine.
See if that needle thread will work. Perfect.
So something else that we use a lot when working with jeans or denim, or especially if we're hemming a pair of pants, and that's what I have simulated here. I have a bulky seam of a heavy like canvas type fabric. So what comes with all of our Bernina machines is this little gizmo. Most people have no idea what it is and forget they even have it, but this is a height compensating tool. So this is excellent for assisting the feet, because you can use it with other feet other than just a jeans foot, but it's excellent for assisting the feet over a hump. So the Bernina machines have no problem sewing through multiple layers of fabric, as most of you know. However, sometimes when it goes over the bump, it also doesn't have an issue going over. But what can happen is as it's trying to go over, the stitches may get really close together and get really tight. And what that is because our feet can pivot. So as it's going over this bump, is that foot pivots upward. So when that foot pivots upward, it's no longer fully coming in contact with the feed dogs, only the back portion is, and that can cause issues, like it may not feed properly going over or coming off of that ridge. So that's when we use this height compensating tool. This is a super awesome tool. So the way this works is, so as we're sewing, so we're going to sew. And also, typically, when you're working with a thicker thread, you typically want to increase your stitch length beyond just that normal 2.5 stitch length. So we'll move it up to about a 3. All right. So let's start stitching. And so when we come up to that hump, we're going to change something. All right, so it came up to the hump, and it's giving me some resistance. It's actually trying to push against the hump. So at that point, I can raise my foot up. I can take my height compensating tool. So there's 3 layers. Typically you're using 2. But if you're dealing with something really bulky, you can use the 3rd layer and use all 3. So it really depends on how bulky of a seam you're going with, because the whole purpose of this is to put it behind or put it next to the foot, but underneath it. So what that does is it levels off the foot. So here if I drop my foot, so now it's nice and flat, because the back of the foot is being supported by this height compensating tool. So what it's doing is the back portion of the foot's pushing up, pushing down on this plastic height compensating tool, and it's pushing down the fabric. And what it's doing is now it's pushing on that back portion of the feed dogs. So it's going to glide right over that hump, just like that. And it's not going to skip a beat. So that's the purpose of the height compensating tool. So another thing you can do, so you can see it glided right over that and it didn't skip a beat. The stitch length or nothing changed at that section. So you can also top stitch with this foot, especially if you're top stitching over something really bulky like this. What we can do, you can use like one of the little guides on the foot, and we can ride it right along the edge. But the problem here is, as you can see, not all of the foot is underneath the fabric. I'm sorry, not all of the fabric is underneath the foot. So it may need some assistance. So what we can do, we can have that needle drop like we have it here. We can raise that foot up a little bit, and then get this height compensating tool right underneath it. And as we can see here, it's nice and level with this bulky seam. So we can start sewing. And what that's going to do, it's going to help us evenly feed that fabric. You will have to work in sections. So you kind of raise it up a bit and move this forward. So the machine's not having any difficulty penetrating through the fabric, but if we're stitching along the edge, where the pressure of the foot isn't evenly being applied to the feed dogs, we may have some issues moving the fabric along smoothly, because we don't want irregular stitch length. So this height compensating tool really helps feed those bulkier seams along. So you can see here we're working with 12 weight threads, so we get a nice, pretty, thicker stitch. Something else you can do is with the jeans foot and with any foot is we can use a triple stitch. So let me change to stitch number 6, which is a triple stitch. So we'll stitch this right down the center. So what this is going to do is it goes back and forth. And so with this thicker thread, it's going to be a really thick stitch. So the groove on the bottom of the foot is going to allow these stitches to glide right underneath it. So it's not going to impair the construction of the stitch. So we can look here and we can see we have a very, very pretty bold stitch. Hopefully it shows up on camera as bold as it looks and it is in person. But you can see here, this is 12 weight thread, just a single stitch. And here's 12 weight thread, a triple stitch, which is stitch number 6 on most of your Berninas. And so it gives you a nice, pretty, bold stitch. So this is excellent if you're doing hems on jeans, if you're constructing jeans, or just hemming them because they're too short. Or too long. You can easily use a thicker thread and create this beautiful stitch just like you would on jeans, especially with some help with your height compensating tool, if you need it, especially when going over bulky seams. Now also remember, this height compensating tool can be used with other feet. You don't have to just use it with this jeans foot number 8. So I hope this video, working with foot number 8, jeans foot, helps answer any questions. Hopefully it will inspire you to use this foot, because a number of machines do come with foot number 8, but a number of them don't, so it would be an additional foot unless you happen to acquire it. But it's excellent for working with bulkier fabrics, hemming jeans, or whatnot. So if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and check out a number of my other videos that I've got out there. I've got a number of videos of different feet, quilt block construction, different rulers, different gizmos and gadgets. So just give them all a check. All right, and as always, happy sewing.